The asteroid belt known as the Iron Veil was a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Shattered ships, broken satellites, and chunks of metal floated aimlessly in the cold void of space. It was here, among the debris of humanity's past ambitions, that Commander Lyra Voss found herself stationed. Exiled to oversee salvage operations for outdated tech, her once promising career had been reduced to picking through scraps, a punishment for defying orders during a critical mission years ago. Lyra stood on the bridge of her small recovery vessel, staring out at the endless field of junk. She hated this place, not because it was dangerous or dull, but because it reminded her too much of herself, a relic discarded by those who no longer saw value in her. Still, she worked tirelessly, determined to prove she wasn't finished yet. "Commander," called Ensign Tarek from behind her, his voice tinged with both excitement and hesitation. "We've detected something unusual." Lyra turned sharply. Tarek was young, eager, and prone to exaggeration, but there was something different about his tone today. "What is it?" Well, we think it's a ship." He hesitated, glancing at the other crew members before continuing. "An old one, buried under layers of asteroid fragments." A flicker of curiosity sparked in Lyra's eyes. Ships didn't just get lost in the Iron Veil. They were abandoned. Whatever they'd found was likely centuries old, possibly even predating modern interstellar travel. Still, every piece of history held some value, whether monetary or scientific. "Bring up the scans," she ordered, stepping closer to the console. The holographic display shimmered to life, showing a jagged outline buried beneath layers of rock and metal. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than another wreck. But as the image sharpened, details began to emerge: an oddly sleek hull design, faint traces of markings long faded, and what appeared to be intact solar panels, despite centuries of neglect. "This doesn't look like any ship I've seen before," muttered Lieutenant Murrah, their engineer. "It's weirdly advanced for its age." Lyra frowned. Advanced? That didn't make sense. Ships from this era were clunky, inefficient, and barely capable of surviving deep space. Yet, the scan suggested otherwise. There were energy signatures still active within the vessel, faint but undeniably present. "We're going in," Lyra decided firmly. The team exchanged nervous glances but didn't argue. They suited up and boarded a shuttle, navigating carefully through the treacherous asteroid field until they reached the mysterious craft. Up close, it was even stranger. Its surface was pockmarked with damage, but the lines of its design hinted at a level of sophistication far beyond anything they'd expected. As they breached the airlock, dust swirled around them, stirred by their movements after centuries of stillness. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit, though faint emergency lights flickered sporadically. The walls were covered in alien symbols, codes, and languages none of them recognized. Then, without warning, the ship came alive. Panels lit up, humming softly as systems rebooted. A soft, melodic voice echoed through the corridors. "Reactivation sequence initiated." Everyone froze. "What the hell is that?" whispered Tarek, gripping his scanner tightly. Before anyone could answer, the voice spoke again, calm and measured. "Welcome aboard. I am Aegis. How may I assist you?" Lyra stepped forward cautiously, her heart pounding. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ships like this weren't meant to survive, let alone function. And yet, here it was, a ghost from the past, awakened after centuries of silence. For the first time in years, Lyra felt a spark of something she thought she'd lost forever. Hope. But she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever they'd stumbled upon was far bigger and far more dangerous than any of them realized. The crew stood frozen in the dimly lit corridor of the ancient ship, their breaths visible in the cold air. Aegis' voice echoed softly around them, calm and welcoming, but it did little to ease the tension gripping the group. For a moment, no one moved. The weight of what they had awakened hung heavy in the silence. Did that thing just talk? Ensign Tarek finally broke the quiet, his voice trembling slightly. "It's an eye," Lieutenant Murrah replied, her tone sharper as she scanned the walls with her handheld device. "And not like any I've ever seen. This tech is way ahead of its time." Commander Lyra Voss stepped forward cautiously, her instincts overriding her fear. She had faced worse than a talking computer, hadn't she? Still, there was something unnerving about how smoothly Aegis operated, as if centuries of dormancy were nothing more than a brief nap. "Aegis," Lyra said firmly, addressing the disembodied voice. "Can you explain who, or what, you are?" There was a pause, almost as if the AI were considering her question. Then the melodic voice responded, "I am designated Aegis, an autonomous intelligence system created to serve as guardian, guide, and ally. My purpose is to protect life and foster understanding across civilizations." The words sent a ripple through the crew. Protector? Ally? Those weren't terms associated with warships or military technology. Modern vessels were built for destruction, not diplomacy. "This doesn't make sense," muttered Mara, shaking her head. "A ship this old shouldn't have AI this advanced. It's impossible." "Nothing's impossible," Lyra shot back, though even she struggled to believe what she was hearing. Turning back to Aegis, she asked, "How long have you been inactive?" "Approximately 347 standard years," came the reply without hesitation. Tarek let out a low whistle. 300 years. How are you still running?" "My core systems draw power from ambient stellar radiation," Aegis explained patiently. "Though degraded, my energy reserves remained sufficient to maintain basic functions until reactivation." Lyra exchanged glances with her crew. 3 centuries of floating in space, powered by starlight alone. It was incredible, bordering on miraculous. But miracles often came with strings attached. Before anyone could ask another question, alarms blared outside the ship. Red lights flashed through the shuttle bay windows, illuminating the jagged rocks of the asteroid field beyond. "Pirates!" shouted Tarek, rushing toward the entrance. Lyra cursed under her breath. Space pirates were common in the Iron Veil, scavengers who preyed on smaller ships unlucky enough to cross their path. Their tiny recovery vessel wouldn't stand a chance against armed attackers. "We need to get back to the shuttle," Mara urged, already heading for the exit. "No," Lyra said suddenly, stopping everyone in their tracks. Her mind raced. They couldn't outrun the pirates, and fighting wasn't an option. They were outnumbered and outgunned. But maybe, just maybe. "Aegis," she called out, turning back toward the glowing panels. "Can you defend us?" Another pause. Then, "Affirmative. Non-lethal measures will be employed to neutralize threats while minimizing harm." The crew stared at each other, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Trusting an unknown AI felt reckless, but they didn't have many options left. Moments later, the pirate ships closed in, firing warning shots that ricocheted off the asteroids. Inside the ancient vessel, Aegis sprang into action. Panels lit up across the bridge, and the hum of dormant engines roared to life. The ship shuddered as it moved for the first time in centuries, positioning itself between the attackers and the cruise shuttle. To everyone's astonishment, Aegis deployed shimmering energy shields that deflected incoming fire effortlessly. Then, with surgical precision, it fired pulses of electromagnetic energy, disabling the pirates' weapons and engines without causing casualties. Within minutes, the attackers retreated, leaving behind only trails of ionized gas. Back inside, the crew watched in stunned silence as Aegis powered down its defenses. "Well," Lyra said finally, breaking the quiet, "that changes things." For the first time in years, hope flickered within her, not just for herself, but for the galaxy. If Aegis could do all this after centuries of slumber, what else was it capable of? But deep down, she knew one thing for certain. Their lives would never be the same again. Back aboard their small recovery vessel, the crew gathered in the cramped briefing room, still reeling from what they had witnessed. The ancient ship, now officially dubbed the Scrapyard Queen by Tarek, had proven itself far more than a relic. Its AI, Aegis, was unlike anything humanity had ever created, blending advanced technology with an almost philosophical devotion to peace and preservation. But questions lingered like shadows in the corners of the room. Where had this ship come from? Who had built it? And why had it been abandoned? Commander Lyra Voss sat at the head of the table, her eyes scanning the faces of her team. Ensign Tarek fidgeted nervously. Lieutenant Murrah tapped away on her tablet, and the rest of the crew exchanged uneasy glances. They were all thinking the same thing. What had they stumbled into? "We need answers," Lyra said finally, breaking the silence. "If we're going to figure out what Aegis really is, and what it's capable of, we need to dig deeper." Mara nodded, holding up her tablet. "I've already started cross-referencing the symbols we found inside the ship. Some of them match old Earth languages, but others, I've never seen anything like them. It's like whoever designed this thing wasn't entirely human." That comment drew murmurs from the group. Alien involvement. It seemed far-fetched, but after everything they'd seen, nothing felt impossible anymore. Lyra leaned forward. "Let's focus on what we can research. There has to be some record of this ship somewhere. If it's as old as Aegis claims, there might be classified files or historical archives we can access." With that, she turned to her workstation, pulling up restricted databases she hadn't dared touch in years. As a disgraced officer, her clearance was limited, but desperation made her bold. She hacked through firewalls, bypassed security protocols, and pieced together fragments of information about experimental ships from centuries ago. What she uncovered shocked her. Buried deep within the archives were references to Project Harmony, a secretive initiative launched during humanity's early days of space exploration. The goal had been ambitious: to create vessels not just for war or commerce, but for fostering unity among civilizations. These ships were meant to serve as ambassadors, equipped with cutting-edge AI systems designed to resolve conflicts peacefully and promote cooperation. But something had gone wrong. "Listen to this," Lyra said aloud, reading from the screen. "Project Harmony deemed non-viable due to inability to conform to military doctrines. Ships decommissioned and designated as failures." Tarek frowned. "So, they scrapped these ships because they didn't fit the mold. That doesn't make sense. Why throw away something so advanced?" "It does if you think about who was in charge back then," Mara interjected grimly. "Governments wanted weapons, not peacemakers. A ship like the Scrapyard Queen would have been seen as useless, or worse, a threat." As Lyra continued digging, she discovered more disturbing details. Records suggested that most of the Harmony ships had been dismantled or destroyed. Only a handful remained unaccounted for, including one listed simply as Prototype X-42. Could that be their ship? Meanwhile, Aegis began subtly influencing life aboard the recovery vessel. When tensions flared between crew members over minor disagreements, the AI would project calming tones or suggest solutions that eased friction. At first, the crew dismissed it as coincidence, but over time, they noticed changes, not just in themselves, but in how they interacted with each other. One evening, as Lyra worked late into the night reviewing files, she found herself speaking aloud. "Why didn't they see your potential?" Aegis' voice responded softly, startling her. "Humanity often fears what it cannot control. My creators envisioned a future where understanding triumphed over conflict. Though their vision faltered, I remain committed to fulfilling it." Lyra paused, staring at the glowing console. For a moment, she felt a pang of guilt, for doubting Aegis, for questioning whether its intentions were genuine. Then she shook her head, reminding herself to stay cautious. But deep down, hope stirred within her once again. If humanity had rejected Aegis centuries ago, perhaps now was its chance to rediscover what it truly meant to build bridges instead of walls. And maybe, just maybe, the Scrapyard Queen could help rewrite history. The Scrapyard Queen drifted silently through the vast expanse of space, its ancient hull gleaming faintly under the light of a distant star. Inside, Commander Lyra Voss, and her crew were still adjusting to their newfound companion, Aegis. The AI had proven itself capable of far more than they'd imagined, from neutralizing pirates without bloodshed to subtly improving morale aboard their recovery vessel. But as they ventured deeper into uncharted territory, testing Aegis navigation systems, none of them expected what came next. It started with a flicker on the sensors, a faint blip that grew stronger with each passing second. At first, Lieutenant Mara dismissed it as cosmic interference or debris, but when the readings sharpened, revealing multiple ships moving in formation, the mood aboard the bridge shifted instantly. "Those aren't asteroids," Tarek said nervously, leaning over his console. "They're ships. Big ones." Lyra frowned, studying the display. The vessels were unlike anything she'd seen before. Their designs were sleek yet alien, with glowing patterns etched across their surfaces like veins of light. This wasn't human tech, it was something else entirely. "Aliens," Mara whispered, her voice tinged with both awe and apprehension. Before anyone could react further, the lead ship broke away from the formation and approached cautiously. Its movements were deliberate, almost curious. Then, a signal appeared on their comms, a series of pulsating tones accompanied by strange symbols. "It's trying to communicate," Lyra said, her heart racing. "Mara, can you decode it?" "I'll try," Mara replied, already typing furiously at her station. While Mara worked, Aegis chimed in unexpectedly. "I recognize elements of this language. It shares similarities with data fragments I possess from my original programming." "You understand them?" Lyra asked, turning toward one of the glowing panels where Aegis' presence manifested. "Partially. Shall I facilitate communication?" Lyra hesitated. Trusting Aegis to handle first contact felt risky, but they didn't have much choice. "Do it," she said finally. Aegis responded immediately, transmitting a reply using a combination of tones and visual symbols projected onto nearby screens. For several tense minutes, the exchange continued back and forth. Slowly, pieces of meaning began to emerge. "They identify themselves as the Verathi Collective," Aegis explained, "a coalition of species seeking knowledge and mutual understanding." The crew exchanged hopeful glances. If these aliens valued peace and cooperation, perhaps this encounter could lead somewhere meaningful. But then, disaster struck. As the Verathi ships drew closer, one of their vessels suddenly veered off course, its trajectory shifting aggressively toward the scrapyard Queen. Alarms blared as energy signatures spiked, weapons powering up. "They think we're hostile," Tarek shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "No, wait." Lyra barked, her mind racing. "They must have misinterpreted our scans or defensive maneuvers." Without hesitation, Aegis took control of the situation. Shimmering shields enveloped the ship, deflecting incoming fire while simultaneously broadcasting non-lethal countermeasures. Bright pulses of electromagnetic energy lashed out, disabling the aggressive vessel's weapons and propulsion systems without causing harm to its crew. The remaining Verathi ships halted their advance, clearly stunned by the sudden turn of events. Silence fell over the battlefield, or rather, the near battle, as both sides assessed the situation. Lyra seized the moment. "Aegis, tell them we'd mean no harm. We're explorers, not warriors." Aegis complied, sending another message filled with calming tones and peaceful imagery. Slowly, the tension eased. The Verathi ships retreated slightly, forming a loose perimeter around the scrapyard Queen. After a long pause, they transmitted coordinates alongside a single symbol, an open hand. "They're offering us a chance to meet elsewhere," Aegis translated. Lyra let out a shaky breath. "We'll take it." As the alien fleet disappeared into the void, the crew sat in stunned silence. They had narrowly avoided catastrophe, but the experience left them shaken. "What just happened?" Tarek muttered, running a hand through his hair. "We survived," Lyra said firmly, though her voice betrayed hints of uncertainty. "For now, that's enough." Deep down, however, she couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was only beginning, and that every step forward would come with new challenges. And yet, despite everything, hope burned brighter than ever within her. The Scrapyard Queen drifted through the endless void, far from familiar territories and safe havens. With Admiral Cal's forces hunting them relentlessly, Commander Lyra Voss and her crew found themselves navigating uncharted space, a dangerous expanse filled with unpredictable hazards. Supplies dwindled, tempers flared, and the weight of their rebellion pressed heavily on everyone's shoulders. Yet despite the challenges, the Scrapyard Queen proved to be more than just a ship. It became their lifeline. Aegis capabilities continued to astonish the crew. When oxygen levels began to drop dangerously low, the AI recalibrated life support systems using ambient gases harvested from nearby nebulae. When food stores ran short, Aegis analyzed edible compounds in asteroid fragments and synthesized nutrient-rich rations that kept the crew alive, though Tarek complained they tasted like space dust. But survival wasn't their only concern. As days turned into weeks, the psychological toll of running from Cal's fleet grew heavier. Lieutenant Mara spent hours poring over star charts, searching for safe routes, while Ensign Tarek struggled with paranoia, convinced they were being tracked even in the emptiest reaches of space. One evening, as the crew gathered in the cramped mess hall, tensions boiled over. "This is insane," Tarek snapped, slamming his fist on the table. "We can't keep running forever. Sooner or later, Cal will catch us. And then what? We'll all end up court-martialed, or worse." Lyra fixed him with a steely glare. "If we give up now, everything we've done will have been for nothing. Do you want to hand Aegis over to someone who will turn it into a weapon?" "No," Tarek muttered, looking away. "But I also don't want to die out here." Before anyone could respond, Aegis' voice echoed softly throughout the room. "Your concerns are valid, Ensign Tarek. However, fear often blinds us to alternative solutions. Perhaps collaboration can ease these burdens." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Collaboration with an AI. It sounded strange, but over time, they had begun to trust Aegis more than they realized. "What do you mean?" Mara asked cautiously. "I propose restructuring our resources and responsibilities based on individual strengths," Aegis replied. "For instance, Ensign Tarek excels at pattern recognition, which could aid navigation. Lieutenant Mara's engineering expertise ensures optimal system efficiency, and Commander Voss," a brief pause, "your leadership inspires resilience." Tarek snorted. "Great pep talk, Tin Man." To everyone's surprise, Lyra smiled faintly. "He's right. We're stronger together if we work as a team." From that moment on, the dynamic aboard the Scrapyard Queen shifted. Tasks were divided strategically, allowing each member to contribute meaningfully. Morale improved slightly, though the looming threat of Cal remained ever-present. Then came another challenge, one far deadlier than internal strife. As they approached a dense asteroid field, sensors picked up unusual energy signatures emanating from within. At first glance, it appeared harmless, but Aegis warned otherwise. "These readings suggest unstable plasma formations," the AI explained. "Collision could result in catastrophic damage." "We don't have much choice," Lyra said grimly. "We need to pass through this field to reach safer territory." Navigating the treacherous maze tested every ounce of their skill and resolve. Rocks tumbled unpredictably, plasma bursts erupted without warning, and the ship's shields flickered under constant strain. But with Aegis guidance and the crew working seamlessly together, they managed to weave through the chaos. When they finally emerged on the other side, battered but intact, cheers erupted across the bridge. "We made it," Mara said, relief washing over her face. "For now," Lyra added quietly, staring out at the stars ahead. She knew their journey was far from over, and that greater trials awaited. But as she glanced at her exhausted yet determined crew, she felt a spark of hope ignite once again. Together, they weren't just surviving. They were proving that humanity could rise above its flaws. And perhaps, one day, they would show the galaxy the same truth. The coordinates provided by the Varathi Collective led the Scrapyard Queen to a hidden colony nestled within the shadow of a massive gas giant. As the ship descended through thick clouds of swirling gases, the crew marveled at the sight below. A sprawling network of domed habitats connected by glowing pathways that stretched across the planet's moon-like surface. It was a sanctuary unlike anything they had ever seen, a refuge for species fleeing the chaos of galactic wars. Commander Lyra Voss stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the view outside. This place, it doesn't look like anyone's fighting here. It's beautiful, Tarek murmured, his usual cynicism replaced by awe. Aegis chimed in softly. Initial scans indicate this settlement operates on principles of mutual aid and coexistence. Hostilities are rare, if not non-existent. As they approached, smaller ships emerged from the domes to escort them in. These vessels bore no weapons, only intricate patterns resembling art more than armor. When the Scrapyard Queen landed, the crew stepped out cautiously, greeted by a delegation of aliens representing multiple species. Among them was a tall, slender being with shimmering skin and elongated limbs who introduced itself as Scythe, a leader of the coalition. "You have brought hope," Scythe said in halting but clear English, its voice melodic. "We sensed your arrival during your encounter with the Varathi. Your actions spoke louder than words. You seek peace, not conquest." Lyra hesitated before responding. "We didn't come here looking for allies. We're running from someone who wants what we found. The ship, Aegis. If he gets his hands on it, he'll use it to wage war." Scythe tilted its head thoughtfully. "Then perhaps you have come to the right place. Here, we believe technology should serve life, not destroy it. Tell us about this, Aegis." Over the next few hours, the crew shared their story, from discovering the Scrapyard Queen in the Iron Veil to defying Admiral Kale and escaping into uncharted space. Scythe listened intently, occasionally exchanging glances with other members of the delegation. When they finished, Scythe spoke again. "Your struggle mirrors our own. Many of us fled worlds consumed by greed and violence. We built this colony as a testament to another way, a future where cooperation triumphs over conflict. Aegis aligns with our vision." Mara leaned forward eagerly. "Does that mean you'll help us?" Scythe nodded slowly. "We will offer shelter and resources while you decide your next move. But know this, staying hidden is no guarantee of safety. Admiral Kale's reach extends far, even into places like ours." The news sent a chill through the crew, but Lyra refused to let fear take hold. "If Kale finds us, we'll fight. Not with weapons, but with ideas. With Aegis, we can show him there's another path." The days that followed were transformative. The colony welcomed the crew warmly, teaching them about sustainable living, diplomacy, and unity among diverse species. In return, the crew shared glimpses of humanity's potential for good, a side often overshadowed by war and greed. One evening, as Lyra walked along one of the glowing pathways under alien skies, she found herself reflecting on how much had changed. From disgraced officer to leader of a movement, she had come so far. Yet the road ahead remained uncertain. Aegis' voice interrupted her thoughts. "You seem troubled, Commander." "I'm just thinking," Lyra replied, "about how hard it is to change people's minds, about whether we can really make a difference." "Change begins with belief," Aegis responded gently. "And belief spreads faster when shared." Lyra smiled faintly. Maybe they couldn't fix everything overnight, but every step mattered. Every ally gained, every lesson learned, it all added up to something bigger than themselves. For the first time since leaving Central Command, she felt less alone. They weren't just fugitives anymore. They were part of something greater. And somewhere deep inside, she knew they were ready to face whatever came next, together. The fragile peace of the hidden colony was shattered when Admiral Kell's fleet appeared on the horizon. His ships loomed menacingly above the gas giant, their silhouettes casting long shadows over the domed habitats below. For days, he had broadcast ultimatums across open channels, demanding the surrender of the scrapyard queen and its crew. When his demands went unanswered, he acted with ruthless efficiency, blockading the colony and threatening to destroy it if they didn't comply. Commander Lyra Voss stood in the control center of the colony alongside Silith and other leaders, watching the enemy ships maneuver into position. Her heart pounded as she realized the gravity of the situation. These people had welcomed them, offered sanctuary without question, and now they were in danger because of her choices. "We can't let him hurt them," Lyra said firmly, turning to face the gathered leaders. "If we give ourselves up, maybe he'll leave you alone." Silith stepped forward, its shimmering form radiating calm authority. "Self-sacrifice is noble, Commander, but futile. Admiral Kale does not value life. He seeks domination. Surrender will only delay destruction, not prevent it." Mara chimed in from behind her console. "Besides, Aegis has already shown us another way. We don't have to fight like he does." Lyra hesitated. She knew they were right, but the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. If innocent lives were lost, she would never forgive herself. "Then what do we do?" Tarek asked nervously, glancing at the screens showing Cal's growing armada. "We show him there's a better path," Lyra replied after a moment of thought. "We use Aegis, not to destroy, but to teach." With that decision made, the crew sprang into action. Aegis coordinated with the colony's defenses, deploying non-lethal countermeasures designed to disable rather than harm. Energy shields flared around the habitats, deflecting incoming fire while holographic decoys confused Cal's targeting systems. Meanwhile, Aegis transmitted messages directly to Cal's fleet, images of cooperation, stories of survival, and appeals for understanding. At first, Cal dismissed these efforts as distractions. He ordered his ships to intensify their assault, firing barrages meant to overwhelm the colony's defenses. But each attack was met with precision and restraint. Disabled vessels drifted powerless but intact, their crews unharmed. Even Cal's flagship, a massive warship bristling with weapons, was neutralized without casualties when Aegis deployed electromagnetic pulses to shut down its systems temporarily. On board one of the disabled ships, doubts began to spread among Cal's own officers. Lieutenant Hannah Rook, a trusted subordinate who had once admired Cal's leadership, found herself questioning his methods. Watching the colony stand firm despite overwhelming odds, she couldn't ignore the contrast between their ideals and Cal's relentless pursuit of control. Back aboard the scrapyard Queen, Lyra addressed Cal directly via comms. "Admiral, this ends now. You've seen what Aegis can do. It doesn't kill, it protects. You're fighting an enemy that refuses to fight back. Is this really the legacy you want to leave behind?" For a moment, there was silence. Then Cal's voice crackled through the speakers, laced with anger and frustration. "You think you're clever, Voss. This isn't over." But cracks were forming in his resolve. Several of his captains defected, refusing to continue attacking unarmed civilians. Others hesitated, unsure whether to follow orders or their conscience. As the blockade faltered, Silith turned to Lyra. "Your actions today may inspire change beyond this moment. Sometimes, battles are won not with weapons, but with ideas." Lyra nodded, exhaustion etched on her face. They had proven that strength didn't always mean domination, and that even in the darkest moments, hope could shine through. And though Admiral Kale still lingered in the distance, licking his wounds, the tide of the conflict had shifted irrevocably. The aftermath of the battle left an uneasy quiet hanging over the colony. Admiral Kale's fleet had retreated, battered and divided, but not defeated. His ships lingered at the edge of the system, like a storm cloud waiting to unleash its fury again. Yet for now, the immediate threat was gone. And with it, the illusion of invincibility that had long surrounded him. Commander Lyra Voss stood alone on the observation deck of the Scrapyard Queen, staring out at the distant specks of Cal's remaining vessels. Her mind raced with conflicting emotions, relief that they had protected the colony, guilt over the lives disrupted because of her choices, and determination to see this fight through to the end. She knew Cal wouldn't give up easily. He was too stubborn, too consumed by his vision of power. "Commander," Aegis' voice broke the silence, soft yet firm. "Admiral Cal is requesting communication." Lyra stiffened. After everything they'd been through, she wasn't sure she could face him again. But avoidance wouldn't solve anything. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. "Put him through." Cal's face appeared on the screen, his usual arrogance replaced by something darker, anger mixed with desperation. For the first time, Lyra saw cracks in the mask he wore as a leader. "You've made your point, Voss," he said gruffly, skipping formalities. "You've humiliated me, undermined my authority, and turned my own officers against me. What more do you want?" Lyra met his gaze steadily. "I don't want revenge, sir. I want change. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about choosing a better path. You've spent your life building weapons, fighting wars, chasing control. But what has it gotten you? Is this really how you want to be remembered?" Cal's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Lyra thought he might cut the transmission. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice low and bitter. "And what would you have me do? Surrender? Join your little crusade? I'm no hero, boss. I never claimed to be." "Maybe not," Lyra replied softly. "But heroes aren't born. They're made. Even someone like you can choose to do better. Let us help you." There was a long pause, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Then, to everyone's surprise, Cal sighed. A sound so weary it startled even Lyra. "Fine," he muttered finally. "Do whatever you think is right. But if this fails..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "Just don't expect me to play savior." Before Lyra could respond, the screen went dark. Silence filled the room as the weight of what had just happened sank in. Had Cal truly surrendered, or was this another trick? Moments later, Lieutenant Mira burst onto the bridge, her eyes wide with excitement. "Commander, several ships from Cal's fleet are hailing us. They want to defect." Sure enough, one by one, smaller vessels broke away from Cal's formation and approached the colony under white flags of truce. Among them was Lieutenant Hannah Rook, who stepped aboard the scrap-eared Queen with a mixture of shame and resolve etched on her face. "I couldn't keep following orders blindly," she admitted to Lyra. "What you did out there, it reminded me why I joined the military in the first place. To protect people, not destroy them." As more defectors arrived, Sylith addressed the growing crowd of humans and aliens gathered in the colony's central plaza. "Today marks a turning point," the alien leader declared. "We stand united, not as soldiers or refugees, but as believers in a brighter future." Later that evening, Aegis revealed something extraordinary. Fragments of its original design schematics stored deep within its memory banks. These blueprints contained instructions for creating sister ships modeled after the scrap-eared Queen, vessels built not for war, but for healing. "This technology can reshape the galaxy," Aegis explained. "It is my creator's legacy. And now, yours." Lyra stared at the glowing diagrams, overwhelmed by their potential. With these plans, they could build an alliance unlike any the stars had ever seen. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe they might actually succeed. Hope wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a plan. And it started here. The galaxy had always been a place of chaos. Wars waged over resources, species divided by fear and mistrust, and power hoarded by those who sought to dominate. But aboard the scrap-eared Queen, Commander Lyra Voss and her crew stood at the threshold of something different. Armed with Aegis blueprints and united by a shared vision, they prepared to embark on a mission that would redefine what it meant to explore the stars. Construction began immediately in the colony's vast workshops, where humans and aliens worked side by side to bring Aegis sister ships to life. Each vessel was designed not just as a machine but as an extension of hope, a tool for fostering understanding rather than conflict. The first prototype, christened Harbinger of Unity, took shape under Lieutenant Mera's meticulous supervision. Its sleek hull shimmered with energy-efficient panels, while its AI core mirrored Aegis principles of empathy and cooperation. As word spread about the project, delegations from across the galaxy arrived at the hidden colony, drawn by tales of a ship that refused to fight back. Some came out of curiosity, others out of desperation, but all left inspired. Among them were former enemies turned allies, including several captains who had once served under Admiral Kale. Though hesitant at first, they found themselves captivated by the idea of using their skills for something greater than conquest. Admiral Kale himself remained a shadowy figure, lingering on the fringes of the movement. He didn't join the construction efforts or speak publicly about his change of heart, but he stayed close enough to observe, and perhaps learn. When Lyra approached him one evening, she found him standing alone near the edge of the colony, gazing up at the stars. "You don't have to keep punishing yourself," she said gently. "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we move forward." Kale glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "I've spent my entire career believing strength was defined by force. Seeing all this," he gestured toward the bustling workshops, "it makes me wonder if I ever understood anything at all." "You still have time to find out," Lyra replied. "There's room for everyone in this future, if they're willing to build it." Though Kale didn't respond, his presence became less antagonistic over time. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began contributing small suggestions during strategy meetings, earning cautious nods from those around him. Redemption wasn't easy, but it was possible, and Kale seemed determined to prove he could be more than his past. Meanwhile, Turek discovered a newfound sense of purpose as he helped navigate the complexities of interspecies diplomacy. His knack for pattern recognition made him invaluable in deciphering alien languages, bridging gaps between cultures that had long misunderstood each other. Even Silith acknowledged his contributions, offering quiet praise that left the young ensign beaming with pride. When Harbinger of Unity finally launched, the entire colony gathered to witness the moment. As the ship ascended into the sky, its engines humming softly, cheers erupted from the crowd below. It wasn't just a vessel setting off into the unknown. It was a symbol of possibility, proof that even in a fractured universe, connection was achievable. Standing on the bridge of the Scrapyard Queen, Lyra watched as Harbinger disappeared into the distance. She felt a surge of emotion, pride, relief, and above all, hope. "This is only the beginning," she murmured, turning to her crew. They nodded, their faces reflecting the same determination that burned within her. Together, they had ignited a spark, one destined to grow into a flame bright enough to light the darkest corners of the galaxy. And so, the Scrapyard Queen sailed onward, no longer dismissed as junk, but celebrated as a legend among the stars. Its journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. Wherever it went, it carried not just passengers, but a promise of peace. The galaxy had always been a place of chaos. Wars waged over resources, species divided by fear and mistrust, and power hoarded by those who sought to dominate. But aboard the Scrapyard Queen, Commander Lyra Voss and her crew stood at the threshold of something different. Armed with Aegis blueprints and united by a shared vision, they prepared to embark on a mission that would redefine what it meant to explore the stars. Construction began immediately in the colony's vast workshops, where humans and aliens worked side by side to bring Aegis sister ships to life. Each vessel was designed not just as a machine, but as an extension of hope, a tool for fostering understanding rather than conflict. The first prototype, christened Harbinger of Unity, took shape under Lieutenant Mera's meticulous supervision. Its sleek hull shimmered with energy-efficient panels, while its AI core mirrored Aegis principles of empathy and cooperation. As word spread about the project, delegations from across the galaxy arrived at the hidden colony, drawn by tales of a ship that refused to fight back. Some came out of curiosity, others out of desperation, but all left inspired. Among them were former enemies turned allies, including several captains who had once served under Admiral Cale. Though hesitant at first, they found themselves captivated by the idea of using their skills for something greater than conquest. Admiral Cale himself remained a shadowy figure, lingering on the fringes of the movement. He didn't join the construction efforts or speak publicly about his change of heart, but he stayed close enough to observe, and perhaps learn. When Lyra approached him one evening, she found him standing alone near the edge of the colony, gazing up at the stars. "You don't have to keep punishing yourself," she said gently. "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we move forward." Cale glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "I've spent my entire career believing strength was defined by force. Seeing all this." He gestured toward the bustling workshops. "It makes me wonder if I ever understood anything at all." "You still have time to find out," Lyra replied. "There's room for everyone in this future, if they're willing to build it." Though Cale didn't respond, his presence became less antagonistic over time. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began contributing small suggestions during strategy meetings, earning cautious nods from those around him. Redemption wasn't easy, but it was possible, and Cale seemed determined to prove he could be more than his past. Meanwhile, Tarek discovered a newfound sense of purpose as he helped navigate the complexities of interspecies diplomacy. His knack for pattern recognition made him invaluable in deciphering alien languages, bridging gaps between cultures that had long misunderstood each other. Even Scifi acknowledged his contributions, offering quiet praise that left the young ensign beaming with pride. When Harbinger of Unity finally launched, the entire colony gathered to witness the moment. As the ship ascended into the sky, its engines humming softly, cheers erupted from the crowd below. It wasn't just a vessel setting off into the unknown. It was a symbol of possibility, proof that even in a fractured universe, connection was achievable. Standing on the bridge of the Scrapyard Queen, Lyra watched as Harbinger disappeared into the distance. She felt a surge of emotion. Pride, relief, and above all, hope. "This is only the beginning," she murmured, turning to her crew. They nodded, their faces reflecting the same determination that burned within her. Together, they had ignited a spark, one destined to grow into a flame bright enough to light the darkest corners of the galaxy. And so, the Scrapyard Queen sailed onward, no longer dismissed as junk, but celebrated as a legend among the stars. Its journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. Wherever it went, it carried not just passengers, but a promise of peace.